The story begins with a warrior named Yang who lived thousands of miles away from Japan. In his youth, he underwent intense sword training as a member of the Sad Flute clan, determined to become the greatest swordsman in the world. To achieve that goal, he had to defeat the leader of a rival clan named Tim. When the time for battle came, Yang killed Tim and the rest of his clan. However, when he discovered that Tim had a young daughter, his heart softened and he couldn't bring himself to kill her. This act of mercy was seen as betrayal by his comrades, who believed their victory would not be complete until every member of Tim's clan was dead. As a result, the warriors of the Sad Flute clan declared Yang their enemy. He was forced to burn down his own home and flee across the sea to America, the USA. Upon arriving in America, Yang intended to visit his old friend Smiley, but when he reached a small town called Toma, he learned that Smiley had died 3 years earlier. Meanwhile, Yang's old master Shin discovered a burned letter at Yang's destroyed home. It contained the name of the shipping company Yang had used to travel to America. Realizing this, Shin and his soldiers began tracking Yang's trail across the ocean. In the town of Toma, most people didn't like Yang, but a short man nicknamed 8 Ball showed him kindness and took him to Smiley's old laundry shop. There, Yang planned to live peacefully with the little girl who was traveling with him. One night, a woman named Lin suddenly attacked Yang from behind. He managed to defend himself, but he deliberately held back so that the townspeople wouldn't suspect he was a trained warrior. Realizing her mistake, Lin felt guilty and revealed that she had been a close friend of Smiley. Later, Lin taught Yang how to properly wash clothes so he could reopen the laundry shop and earn a living. The little girl still had no name, so Lin decided to name her April. The next day, Yang cleaned the entire shop, which had been covered in years of dust and dirt, and began working again. The following morning, the village children mocked him, but 8 Ball arrived and chased them away, then invited Yang and April to enjoy some circus food. There, Yang saw Lin practicing knife throwing, but she missed badly. In the days that followed, Yang began to live a peaceful life, washing clothes every day, laughing with his new friends, watching the sunset, and tending to a small garden he planted with his own hands. One day, Yang saw Lin walking toward the cemetery and asked 8 Ball why. 8 Ball told him her tragic story. Years ago, the town was attacked by a corrupt colonel who wanted to force a young woman to become his plaything. That woman was Lin. When he tried to harm her, Lin threw a pot of boiling oil at his face and escaped. As she ran, the colonel opened fire. When her parents and brother rushed to rescue her, he killed them all. That's why Lin lived alone, kind and gentle, but still carrying deep scars in her heart. When the townspeople later retrieved the bodies, they discovered that her entire family had been killed, yet Lin had miraculously survived. The next day, Yang found Lin upset because her knife-throwing aim was terrible. Feeling sympathy, he decided to help her. He took her to the circus grounds and taught her the proper way to throw knives. Yang told her that the problem wasn't in her hands, but in her focus. To help her gain confidence, he blindfolded her and said, "Now throw the knives at me without seeing." Lin threw the knives one after another, and each one hit the target perfectly. Overjoyed, she laughed and said, "Thank you, Sad Flute." That name shocked Yang. How did she know that secret title? It turned out Lin had learned about him from stories Smiley used to tell her, stories saying Yang was a warrior from the Sad Flute clan. Realizing this, Yang decided to tell her the truth. He told her that his father had been an ordinary farmer who was killed by a swordsman who only wanted to test his blade. That day, Yang swore never to tolerate such injustice again and vowed to become the greatest swordsman alive. Seeing the pain in his eyes, Lin gave him her mother's necklace to comfort him. In return, Yang showed her his great sword, the one he had sealed away so he would never kill again. "This," he said, "is a symbol that I've given up fighting." Yet he still kept a few small knives, which he used to train Lin like a true warrior. The villagers, especially a drunkard named Ron, were astonished, a swordsman training a woman to throw knives. Meanwhile, Master Shin and his soldiers hijacked an entire ship, killing everyone aboard so they could cross the ocean to America. Shin believed that even in such a vast land, he could easily find Yang, because once Yang broke the seal on his sword, they would instantly know his location. Back in Toma, Yang lived peacefully, washing clothes each day and training Lin. The little girl April had started walking, and their lives became calm and happy. When Christmas arrived, the circus troupe held a celebration. Yang and Lin attended, but Yang refused to dance. When Lin approached him, instead of dancing, they ended up practicing sword techniques again. At last, Lin pressed her sword against Yang's neck, the first time she had ever truly reached him. Then unexpectedly, she stepped closer and kissed Yang. But at that very moment, the corrupt colonel and his soldiers returned to the village, launching another attack. His face was covered with a mask because his real face had been burned earlier when Lin attacked him with hot oil. He stormed into the celebration and began terrorizing the circus people. His soldiers turned toward one of the clowns and shot him in the leg. Then the colonel said, "Tonight, I want a woman brought to me." The villagers knew Lin would try to take revenge, so they locked her in a room to stop her. Yang Su even took away all her swords so she couldn't cut the ropes. But Lin secretly had a small knife hidden inside her shoe. When everyone left, she freed herself, ready for a bloody revenge. That night, the colonel chose a married woman to abuse, but her husband came to rescue her. Unfortunately, the colonel shot them both, the husband and the wife. Then their little daughters ran crying toward their parents, and the colonel decided to satisfy his evil desires with them that same night. While he was having his meal, Lin appeared, disguised as a dancer, to get close to him. She started dancing to make him lower his guard. Meanwhile, the villagers discovered Lin had escaped and informed Yang Su. When he heard, he decided to save her and broke the seal on his sword, which had been locked away for years. When he unsheathed it, the sound of the sword reached the ears of Master Shin, who immediately ordered his soldiers to march toward that direction to find Yang Su. Meanwhile, Lin attacked the colonel, but he was already prepared with his gun. He had anticipated her arrival. Instantly, his soldiers grabbed Lin and threw her onto the bed as he approached to commit the same crime he failed to complete years ago. But suddenly, in a shocking moment, Yang Su crashed through the window. Everyone froze in fear. He swiftly killed all the soldiers. As he moved toward the colonel, Lin stopped him and said, "Leave him to me. I want to be the one to kill him." The colonel quickly grabbed Lin as a shield and jumped out of the window, running away. He joined his troops outside, but Lin threw her knife from a distance, hitting his throat directly, killing him instantly. However, when the villagers gathered and removed his mask, they realized it wasn't the real colonel, it was someone impersonating him. The real colonel had escaped during the chaos. Meanwhile, Yang Su began packing his belongings, preparing to leave the village with April, knowing that his former master Shin and his warriors were on their way to attack the village. 8-Ball said, "If you leave, the colonel will return with twice as many troops for revenge and the village will be destroyed." The villagers agreed, saying, "Yang Su alone can't fight that many soldiers." Then 8-Ball brought out the drunk man Ron and revealed a big secret. Ron was once a notorious thief who owned many weapons. When he was caught, 8-Ball buried all his weapons in the graveyard, but now the time had come to dig them up. When Ron held his gun and took aim, everyone saw that even after all these years, his hands were still steady and precise. Meanwhile, Lin knew that Yang Su would leave the village after the battle, so she told him she wanted to go with him. Later, Ron brought Yang Su his old clothes to wash and said jokingly, "I knew you were a fighter, your movements and calmness gave you away." Yang Su smiled and replied, "And I knew you were once a killer, I could smell the blood on you." They both laughed and shook hands. Then Ron shared his tragic story. He gave up thievery after the police who were trying to arrest him killed his wife. Before dying, she told him, never pick up a gun again. He had kept that promise ever since, but now, since the village was in danger, he had to return to the fight. Ron knew that his late wife would have understood why he picked up the gun once more, because this time he was protecting innocent people. The next day, a young boy took April underground to hide, while Yang Su waited outside the village for the colonel. When the colonel and his army arrived, they marched straight into Yang Su's fields, but the villagers had already planted landmines there. Massive explosions shook the ground, killing countless enemies. Yang Su took advantage of the smoke and chaos, moving silently through the battlefield, striking down his enemies one by one. Meanwhile, the colonel and his surviving men reached the circus, but the people there had surrounded the area with hidden bombs. Another series of explosions went off, wiping out more of the colonel's forces. Ron was fighting atop the giant Ferris wheel, shooting soldiers from above. When the enemies tried to climb up, the circus people attacked from behind, unleashing heavy gunfire. Yang Su, moving like a shadow, snuck closer and silently eliminated more enemies. When they drew too near, Ron used a rope to swing away and detonated the entire wheel. The explosion wiped out hundreds of soldiers. The villagers thought they had finally won and began coming out to celebrate, but suddenly, the colonel and a few of his remaining men launched a surprise counterattack. Just as the battle grew fierce, the Sad Flute clan arrived. A brutal fight erupted, swords versus guns. Yang Su shouted to Lin, "Run, take April and go," but he himself charged into battle, fighting bravely against both sides. Then he realized the colonel was heading toward Lin and April, so he rushed after him. When Lin was surrounded, she handed April to 8-Ball and said, "Protect her." Then she turned back to join Yang Su in the fight. Together, they wiped out all the soldiers. But when they returned, they found 8-Ball dead. The colonel had killed him and kidnapped April. Now, the colonel was hiding in a hotel with April while his men guarded the outside. The Sad Flute warriors tried to break in, but all were killed. Then Yang Su arrived. He cut through the guards with lightning speed and entered the hotel. There, he used his sword sword with such power that the colonel's gun shattered. He rescued April. But Yang Su didn't kill the colonel, he wanted Lin to take her own revenge. A fierce fight broke out between Lin and the colonel, sword against gun, rage against evil. In the end, Lin struck him down with a single powerful blow, slicing his body into pieces. But it wasn't over yet. Yang Su then faced his former master, Shin, who intended to kill April to erase every trace of Yang Su's bloodline. Shin believed Yang Su could never harm his old master, saying, "Even when I told you to kill that little dog, you refused." But this time, Yang Su was a changed man. He replied, "When it comes to protecting those I love, I fear no one." A brutal battle began between student and master, and in the end, Yang Su killed Shin. Realizing that staying would only bring danger to Lin and April, Yang Su made a painful decision. With tears in his eyes, he walked away, choosing to protect them from afar, even if it meant living alone forever. Backhand index pointing right, and that's where the film ends. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. We'll meet again in the next movie.